Welcome to the Voodoo Power Podcast.
Welcome to Plates and Pancakes. We're sitting down today with Tyler Bise. Tyler graduated from Adrian as their only two-time state champion at 152. After college, he came back to Butler to coach high school wrestling and has brought the successful program to new heights. Stepping back to an assistant this year, Tyler and Coach Long took 5 boys and 1 girl to the state tournament, securing 5 podium spots with 3 thirds, a 5th, and the program's first 2-time state champion. So thanks for coming in, Tyler.
Thank you.
So being Adrian's only 2-time state champion,
Yeah.
and only one of 2 in Bates County,
Yeah.
you kind of hold a legacy that very few have in this part of the country.
Yeah. I don't know about saying that. There's a lot of good wrestlers that come through here. Maybe I just got lucky when the weight, how they shaked out that time of year. I wouldn't say, everybody's like, well, want to act like you're the best. No, I'm not. I don't think I'm the best. They're like Cole Ritter's a phenomenal wrestler. He's doing great things in college. Brendan was great. There's some kids back in the 90s. You got Tony Brown and you got Clayton Barnes. That they were state champions. So there's been an evolution of the sport since the last 30 years. So it's just at that time maybe I was in the zone and I had a good 2 tournaments and 2 years in a row. But I don't think I'm the best by any means. I just at that time I really wanted and worked towards it and I got lucky enough to achieve it. So
Well, I'd say winning twice doesn't make it an accident. So obviously, I don't think you got incredibly lucky, even though I do think you need the right draws to help out. But that was 2 back-to-back successful seasons that you put together on a team that was an incredible team of wrestlers.
yeah, we had a really good team back then. I think my junior year we took 8 kids to the state tournament. 4 of them came away with medals. Cody McDonald ended up like 6th. And then you got his older brother Wesley ended up 4th, but he was ranked 1 and 2 in the state around that time. And then we had another guy who just named Travis Williams. He ended up placing 5th with a broken arm. He broke his arm at districts and he still ended up placing. So, and I think we ended up with 6th overall in the state that year. So, no, I've been blessed with a lot of good coaches along the way and a lot of good teachers of the sport and teachers of life lessons. And it came together, my junior and senior year. So
Now, after high school, you went to University of Wisconsin La Crosse.
yes,
Now, did you wrestle up there?
I intended to. I transferred at semester. I got kind of homesick, and it was about 8.5 hours away. So I don't know. Speaking of toughness and being the college side of things, I think my recruiting class that year had about 8 to 10 state champions from surrounding states, Wisconsin, Minnesota. So, and that's just like every recruiting class up there. Wisconsin La Crosse is a really good Division III wrestling program. So it was an eye-opening event, and eye-opening deal, like seeing how big of a step up that level is, and to be successful at that level. And it kind of shook me. I missed home and missed a lot of things about this area. I really never got out too far from there and been on my own. Maybe I was a little sheltered. So then I transferred into the Truman State, and I did up wrestling there. But when I transferred from Wisconsin La Crosse to go to Truman, I was back here wrestling one day in the wrestling room with the team, and I ended up tearing Achilles tendon. So it kind of took away that freshman year.
What kind of recovery was that? I've heard of people having them, and it seems like it's pretty intense.
It is intense, but the process goes a long way. You have your surgery whenever you schedule that. So when I did it, it kind of felt like somebody took like a baseball bat to the back of my leg, and then I couldn't put any pressure on my toes. I was like, something's wrong here. And somebody said it hurt a pop. And so like I walked out of the room on my heel, I didn't put any pressure on my toe, and I walked in, and then I was like, I was sweaty from practice, and then I went to I was going to go bathe or shower, and I realized I couldn't stand up, so I sat on the tub and and I pushed on my skin, and there's no tendon there, so we ended up getting it scheduled. And I think the worst part about it was the day after the surgery. So any type of, when I went from elevation to stand up, and the blood flow would get to it, it was excruciating pain there for about a week. And then, but you're only in a cast. They keep you in a cast short term, 4 to 6 weeks, depending, because they want to get you into a walking boot. They don't want your tendon to tighten up where you get drop leg or something like that. So they put you in a walking boot, and then as you periodically start stretching it out through that walking boot, and then they want to get flexibility back into it pretty quick. So I would say it took about 9 months, with physical therapy. It takes a lot. Your muscles and your calves shrink pretty quick because you're not using them. But it was, yeah, I learned that line, and then I did it again my junior year in college on my other leg. So I knew exactly when I was playing actually flag football when that happened. So I knew exactly what happened. I was like, golly. So, and then Kirksville is kind of known for the winters, and so every time I'm walking in my crutches and snows, it just
Oh, I bet.
So, but no, it was a good time I wrestled there sophomore year, and then a little bit of junior year, and I just didn't have that motivation, desire to give it all what you need to be successful at the Division II level, and had some family stuff going on too. So it was just best for me just to be a student and kind of focus on my career and help out where I could, and just enjoy it while I had, because I only had a few more years of it.
So coming back home,
yep.
How did the Butler job present itself?
Jeff Taylor is a friend of mine. He's helped out with the Butler Youth Program for a long time, and I just got to know him pretty well. And his son Kenton was wrestling, so I'd go into the room and help out with him, and then he invited me a little bit to go work with the high school coach Marshall. He coaches at Centralia, and I was like, okay. And then it kind of faded away, and then I kind of went through some personal things around 2018, and he's like, you need to get back in the sport of wrestling. This helps you with your identity a little bit. I think you just have free time, but might as well get in this room and help some boys out. We'd really appreciate it. And because at that time, I don't think they had any state qualifiers when I started coming in. And then that first year I helped out, we ended up with 2 state qualifiers, with them both being district finalists. And then, then the rest is history. Then a couple had it. So in Michigan, I think you have to serve 2 years as assistant coach. Well, the head coach at that time on the second year was Nathan Daines, and he went back to Osage. And that was kind of around, I believe, the COVID time frame. And Jake Duvall was the AD down there, and he'd come up to me, and he's like, if you want the head coaching job, it's yours, So at that time, I was like, I had the program rolling, like that culture that I wanted, and the attitudes that I had some really good seniors coming in, or still coming back, and the juniors, I had a lot of talent coming up with younger age sophomores and freshmen. So I could kind of see it. It was kind of all coming into place. So that's the rest is history, I guess. So,
and Butler has a great history of wrestlers. I mean, obviously a program's going to go up and down.
Yeah.
Is there a focus on wrestling in Butler? How does it keep reloading? Like this year you brought 5. I'm not sure what you brought last year, but it was quite a few. I mean, it just keeps showing up at state.
We brought 6, and the year before we only took 3. We kind of had a down year, but the prior year to that we had 7. I think the prior year to that we had 6, and that's including the girls' side of things, because we all wrestle together. It's all the same wrestling room. It's not separate wrestling rooms. We're small, rural area, so we're lucky to have just an Area 4 wrestling room. So so we're all together, and I count them as my wrestlers as well. I just think it's hard to, once you get a culture of working hard and giving it your all, and it kind of what you expect from your wrestlers on a day in, day out basis and getting that across. You can't let up on that side of things because then some people take it too far away. But I don't know, it ebbs and flows is kind of tied back also to your youth program. You got to have a good youth program facility, constantly rolling out young kids and that are going to grow in the high school, junior high, and high school, where you can start to develop there. They have a good base understanding of what wrestling is. There is a big jump from when you get to youth to go to high school. There's a lot of some of our freshmen now, like I've wrestled my whole life and I've lost half my matches already in the first part of the season. And I was like, well, it's a lot more physical. It's a lot faster. You got better athletes. The stuff that we're going to teach you is going to be to counter those things. So it might be a little different than what you learned. That's a good base that you have, but you got to keep developing. Just because you placed or you won state in youth does not mean this doesn't translate exactly over. You got to keep improving your physical side of things as well as the technical side of things, and have a better understanding of match IQ. You wrestle a minute and a half periods when you're coming out of youth, and you're going into 2-minute periods. So there's a difference. You're wrestling another full period if you really count it. So going back to what you're talking about, like the historical side of things, I think when the people that have had success, they've had good coaching, and those people are starting to have kids, and then that kind of filters back in and flows back in. I think the Varnes they're running the program in Butler now, and they've got, I think they had 30, 40 kids come out, and they've got, I think 10, 12 of them going to state. So it's just keeping a good youth program filled up with quality kids and quality parents, and that makes the big difference in what your high school program is going to produce. So.
And as far as this area, basketball's always been a big push, but
yeah,
if you look at it, the teams are getting so big that if you don't grow or you don't stand out as a stellar basketball player, your time on the floor is going to be limited, where you could go to wrestling and really do something.
And there's a large misconception if you're tall or long that you wouldn't be a good wrestler. And that's the sport has developed in a way where tall, long guys that are strong and have good core and flexibility are some of the toughest people to wrestle. If you go watch the NCAAs, there's a lot of guys that have different styles that are like lightning fast and long, and it's not your typical 5'6", 175-pound guys like me that are strong and just fast and direct speed. There's a lot of different styles out there now, and that's the cool thing, the evolution of the sport. Everybody, I think, should try wrestling one time. You'll know if you like it or not. It's a tough sport, but there's a lot of people that don't think they'd like it, and they come out and they love it. It's a one-on-one sport, and it's an adrenaline junkie type of sport. So,
right.
And so I think everybody should do it. Let's just
give it a shot.
Yeah.
Now, your wrestlers, they all have a confidence on the mat.
Yeah.
How is that influenced in the room by coaching? How do you get them to flip the switch when they walk in the gym and they're ready to hit the mat? They're different kids. And
that goes back to how we practice, I would say. We, depending on the day and when our competition dates are, we try to bring high intensity to the practice room. We don't want them being light on each other. Now you don't want them hurting each other or anything like that. You want to be sportsmanlike, but we want them. We wrestle a lot. We wrestle a lot of different positions, and I actually wrestle pretty much every day with them. And if I see something that they're slacking off or being lazy, I jump on them pretty quick, and then I want them to know that I'm watching them. And I see, and it's not so much just to call them out. It's because you're going to wrestle how you practice. If you kind of get to the end of a match, you're kind of tired and you got some bad practice habits, it's going to come back out, and so it's when we see opportunities to score, we need to be reacting and attacking it, not being lazy with it and just trying to wait out the time is what I would say. So So we practice when we see opportunities, we score, and that's preaching. We want to go score points, and that's the mindset that we have to have when we step on the mat. We don't want to stop looking to score points. I think a lot of people can lose matches where they're not really intended to lose is when they get complacent on that. They get up 2-3 points, and then they stop wrestling, actually looking to score points, and then the other guy he might get into a point or score a point there, and that builds confidence for him. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to get back after it. And it's hard to, in wrestling, it's so hard to bounce back after that. There's some momentum. It's hard to quantify momentum or discuss momentum, but there's momentum in a match. I think I can see it, and you can feel it. You can see the mentality change on some kids, and so we try to practice being precise and looking for those opportunities, and when we see those opportunities, just attacking them. So
now, you can't do it all. You can't be the bad guy all the time.
No.
How do you develop leaders?
That's a good question. I'm actually doing taking some classes on leadership for my career. I think some of the qualities are innate, and some qualities of kids, it's just they're innate, but they've been put through situations in their lives, and they've shown themselves their true characteristics. We're all going to face adversity, and this is where I think wrestling is the best sport out there, is because you're going to be put in adversity almost every match of your career. You're going to, when you start, you're starting 0-0. That might not seem like it, but there's adversity there. Like how do you get over those nerves I got to score points now? Some of them, leadership, I'm very much of a believer, lead by example and not so much vocal. See how you work, your preparation into what you're doing in your craft, whether that be your career or your athlete. But there's a lot of different characteristics of leadership too. You can hustle, you can put in that time and the commitment into it, and you can also how you respond to questions, like being on podcasts and stuff like that. I think humbleness is a big characteristic of leadership, and I hope that kind of comes across. We got some wrestlers that are a little more bravado than I am, but then we have some that are they're really down to earth kids, and then they really respect their opponents, and I think that carries across too sometimes. So that is a good question about leadership. I know I'd have to think about that one a little bit more. So
yeah, I mean, it's probably not something you get asked every day.
No.
So that's the good thing about being on this side of the mic. I don't have to answer that.
Yeah.
So let's take that a little bit further between the two programs, because you're associated with both, whether you want to be or not, being from Adrian, knowing the kids, wrestling close, and then having Butler kids. The difference in the room with elite kids and just kids that show up to practice. How do you manage? The elite kids are kind of going to take care of themselves, but you have to give them what they need. The lower kids that don't really know if they like it or it's an opportunity to do a varsity sport, how do you manage the highs and lows of the room? And
this is probably my biggest weakness as a coach. When I was a head coach, I have a career at Adrian Bank, and I'm really thankful for them letting me to take the time and the commitment to help out this road wrestling program. But I wish I probably had more time to develop more of a team. Most people, when they see a Butler wrestling team, we only fill 7-8 wrestling spots out of the 14. But I coach like I want my kids to be hammers, and it's more, I want them to be the best. I want them to think that we're going out there to go win. And sometimes I think that how hard I coach or how hard we coach at Butler, that can get in the way, and not everybody's going to be a state champion wrestler, or let alone a state qualifier wrestler. But I think that goes back to setting the expectation of how we're going to practice. I'm not going to allow someone to loaf and practice and think that's acceptable, because you're not going to be able to do that in life or to be real successful in life. So we try to carry whatever we're preaching in that room to where it's going to have some type of effect when you're out of high school and you become an adult. So we coach to be physical, aggressive, and enduring wrestlers. And if someone doesn't like that, and it's hard. It's hard for me to back away from that type of mentality, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, I want to put people on the podium. I want people put people at the top of the podium. And that's just how we're going to practice. So,
and after being around elite kids for a while, it's hard to watch a kid that has potential that just doesn't want it. You know,
that's not to say like we coach technique at a different level. You know, when I'm coaching Brendan Patrick or Isaac or Kellen, I'm not going to teach at my first year wrestler or second year wrestler that's building. I'm trying to teach them more about fundamentals and basics and good hip position, staying in good position on our feet and hold position. Stuff that they've been had drilled in their head since they were little kids, you know. But I like being at winning, you know, in the process of to get to winning, you know, and that's why, you know, I feel like I've had some luck with what the kids that we've had come in through, and they've been really willing to commit to it. You know, we had, for instance, like in the past, we had 2 years ago, Tristan Trumbore was a senior in a place in that fifth at state. Mm-hmm. When he was a freshman, he won 2 matches. And, you know, I think when he was in junior high, he might have won 2 matches. And the kid just became the hardest worker in the room. And in the senior year, he ended up placing 5th in state. So it works.
It does. It does.
Like, you can develop. Life's about progression. Wrestling's about progression. It's not where you're at. It's like where you're going to be. But the only way you're going to get there is commitment, dedication to developing your wrestling skills, but also you're committing to the workout, the lifting, and an off season. It's committing to when we're doing sprints or we're doing stairs, or it's committing to being first. You know, it's committing to competing the best of your ability, and that's what we preach. So, and that's kind of how me and Coach Long see things, and all the other coaches. So
right. Now, coaching, a lot of it is building relationships.
Yes.
How do you manage to build relationships and not just have it be all business, where kids enjoy wrestling for you because their progression matters?
Yeah, and that there is a balance there. And I think what helps is I wrestled. You know, I did it for a long time, and I can relate to the kids. I can relate to the grind, and the grind, if you don't embrace it, wears on you. And we joke around quite a bit. Like, there's a time to work. Don't get me wrong. There's a time to play and have a good time and relax and joke around. Let the kids trust you, you know. And, like, if you ever watch when we're at the tournaments and stuff, we're always messing with the kids and hoping that they're relaxed and loose and ready to go, you know. But once again, there's a time to play and there's a time to work. And we try to get that, make sure that when things really count, we're there for a business trip and not just to lollygag.
I'll dig back to another podcast I did with a couple of your wrestlers and kind of get how the conversation went. So Isaac said he had 3 cheeseburgers at state and come in pretty heavy. And that night he had to work his butt off to get back down to weight. How did that conversation go when you found out he was, a good 4 pounds over?
I think he was closer to 6 pounds over. I didn't have the conversation with him. I think the other coaches kind of took it and took it on themselves to make sure to let him know that was unacceptable. And Isaac knew better. It's just he got nerved up in the first, because the way state ran this year, like, I know they were kind of with adding another girls class. There's there's a lot of complications with how it went out. Well, from the time they ran us out there, where the kids weighed in, to the time they ran everything out, there was only probably 10 minutes to warm up. So he really didn't have time to eat that morning. And he came out, wrestled. He wrestled all right in the first 2 matches, and then he went up and ate a bunch of cheeseburgers. And I'm a big believer in what you put in your body is critical to your success. And especially when you've been eating pretty clean for most of the year, like especially throughout the week, that it's about what you put in your body, the fuel that you give your body to have success. And eating 3 cheeseburgers is not the way to go. The coach has got the point across, and I know he regrets doing it, and it's just part of the process. I guess he was hungry that day. I felt like when I was an athlete and I competed, like I had to do everything right, to maybe because of my limited athleticism or in my own head or whatever. But like, if I didn't do this, and this right, then I was going to be thrown off my game the whole week. So I had to make sure everything was in order. And I think that built confidence and like, hey, I've done this, and this. I'm going to go out there and go compete the hardest that I can. And I know I'm going to be able to perform. That's how I operated. Now, there's kids today that I'm sure if you have good athleticism or more athleticism than some of your next ones, so you can get away with a little bit more stuff. But I just wanted everybody to handle the things that need to handle that they can handle, the right way, because you want to give your shot the best opportunities to succeed. And it's sometimes like when people do stuff like that, it can be a form of like self-sabotage. Like give yourself an opportunity. And this kind of goes back to what we talked about that night, and when we're all as a team, we just talked about no excuses. There cannot be any more excuses. I don't. It's almost to the point. Well, if I did this and I lose, it's because I did this. Well, in my mind, I'm like, there's no. It should hurt. Like if you go out there, you should commit yourself to, if you lose, it's going to hurt. That's how you got to be it at, in my opinion. You can't go through this life to create excuses to why you don't have success. You need to pursue success with everything you have, and if you end up not reaching the success that you want, well, it's on you, and it's supposed to hurt. But that's how you grow. That if you commit yourself to that success and you don't achieve it, that's the only way you're going to grow, and that's the only way you're going to progress, because you're going to take that hurt and you're going to transition into positive energy. Like, well, if I do this better, if I go do this, work on this technique, if I hit the gym harder, that's how you grow. But if you don't give yourself the opportunity to feel that pain, then I see a hard time of growth there. Like you're not going to grow as much as if you actually take it serious and feel that pain, because you don't reach that success that you wanted. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. And I didn't bring up that scenario to call Isaac out. He came up to the podcast and we had a great time. But it gives you a glimpse of what a wrestler's life looks like. Yeah. You're at state. You've got to weigh in both days. You don't get to just let it all go. You're planning and scheduling the whole time. And then when you get lost in an evening, well, now you've got the rest of your night that you've got to figure out how to get back to center.
Yeah. And, it's a challenge. Like there's a lot of emotions that go into, and they're long days, especially this year. Normally we have a 3-day tournament. It's just a 2-day tournament, and we're pretty much there the whole day for both days. So it's a lot, and it's a lot on being younger kids and just trying to get them to commit to what you think is the right way, He at that point when he already medaled. He had a really tough match that next morning. A kid that he lost to twice already in the year, and so I didn't want to be nervous. He needed to, in my eyes, just instead of greasy cheeseburgers, go to some more healthy and have our focus in there, right? Because I think sometimes he might have lost a little bit of focus there. I think if we're dialing a little bit more, we don't even think about the food side of things. But the week before, I felt like Isaac was probably the most dialed in he'd been ever with me as a coach. You know, he was rocking and firing, and it's just like, this is what we've been working for, and I'm excited for next week. And then it just, things change, you know, like when we watch the NCAAs, it just, people get upset and people just don't have their A game, you know, and at that level, the slightest bit of off, you know, in the high school or the college ranks, you can lose matches. So
talking about the NCAAs, we talked about this last week. I think I called every match wrong, and you called all your matches right.
Yeah.
So Yanni pulled it off.
Oh yeah.
A very select member.
Yeah.
Or a select group of people have become 4-time NCAA champions.
Yep.
What matches were you surprised by?
Oh, of course, the big one, you know, Spencer Lee getting pinned by Matt Ramos, you know, and it wasn't a lucky pin. Like, no. Matt Ramos came out and took him down. Spencer Lee's tough on top, and he turned him. And then it was a close match going in the third period. He caught him in a roll, and that was a big one. I wasn't surprised about Keegan O'Toole beating David Carr. I told you that last week too. Keegan O'Toole kept closing the gap, you know, and that's how you know someone's really focused. You know, his first match he got beat pretty bad, and the second match went to overtime, and then if you watch him, that how that match started, Keegan O'Toole was going forward. You know, you could tell pretty quick that he wanted it. I would say Rocky Elam in the semifinals losing to Sloan. I thought Rocky looked like he was earlier in the tournament. He looked bound to be in the finals and have a chance against Bonacorsi. It just seemed like I don't know what's going on. Like, it seemed like some of the Mizzou wrestlers, when they get to the semifinal match or the big ones, towards the end of the match they kind of gas a little bit, and that's I'm not questioning the conditioning. It just appears the body language a little bit. Like, I don't know if there's like an adrenaline dump or something like that going into that match. But I thought Rocky had a good chance of winning it, and he ended up getting third, which is phenomenal. Division I All-American on everything on that end. But I'd probably say that one. What do you think yours was?
RBY. I never thought I would see somebody just outspeed RBY.
Yes. I was going to talk about that too. Vito made RBY, not, I'm going to say look slow, but like he looked faster than RBY, like lightning fast, and how like his attacks. And he was just like a cobra, man. It was just like, it was like, oh man. And he's, once again, I talk about body types. He's a long, like he's not, right. You know, he's just electric. Did you know his dad was an Olympian? His mom was Olympian.
Genetics play a huge part. David Carr, his dad was an NCAA champion.
Parents are Olympians.
Yes. So it just, you'd like to tell kids, and this may come off weird, but I don't want it to. You tell kids you can be anything you want to be.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to outrun genetics.
Yeah.
You look at Major League Baseball, you look at football, wrestling. A lot of those are family traits. The genes are just so embedded in there that they're destined to be the athletes they are.
Yeah. If I ever have kids, I hope they take after their mom, because she's phenomenal. She was a good athlete, and she was fast and all that stuff. And she played softball in college, so she was center fielder. She could chase stuff down. I was watching her play softball one day, and this is kind of what hooked me. Like 3 months into it, and she chases a center field ball down probably 40 yards. It's like, caught it like stretched out and stuff. I was like, oh man, I don't think I could do that. So
going back to Vito a little bit, listening to his dad talk and listening to him talk, and the thick, the thick Russian accent, it's like, yeah, he was destined to be where he is right now.
Oh yeah.
And then going back to Ramos a little bit, do you think that match with Spencer Lee took such an emotional toll on him that he couldn't finish it out?
I'm sure it played into it. I don't want to be out there criticizing the guy. You know, he's wrestling with he doesn't have ACLs. He tore both of those, and then supposedly he injured a knee. And the guy's a warrior. He won national championship 3 times. As a coach, what would I like to see the wrestler do? I'd like to see him competing back for third, as a just sign of characteristic, But that's not to say I don't know the whole situation,
Right.
Like, so I'm not going to pass judgment of him not wrestling back. Like I said, as a coach, if someone's healthy enough to wrestle, then yeah, I'd like to see him try to get back for third, but it didn't affect their team point standing. They ended up getting second. So, and they probably had known they had that kind of wrapped up too. So he had a hell of a career, and we teach a lot of stuff that he uses. We watch a lot of film on him, and we'd like to show some of that. So I think you can see just when he was down there on the mat side, just watching for the finals and stuff, he's out signing stuff for kids and stuff. So I'm not going to be critical of a guy that has brought so much attention to the sport and is a positive influence and has had such an impact on wrestling, and ESPN blew it up to Spencer Lee's going for his 4th, he's the most dominant wrestler, pound for pound and stuff like that. That pressure has to be there. And that whole arena, except for Iowa fans, was rooting for Matt Ramos when he put him on his back, So it was the same way with Yanni, and he got a good take on that on this press conference the night before when that happened. So, but yeah, I've never been in that position, and I don't. But you got to say it had some effect on it, because there's 20,000 people in that stadium that were, I say 6,000 of them were root for Iowa fans, and that's probably being generous because there's full of them. So you got about 15,000 people rooting against you, and just that stadium, not even across. Everybody has watched on film or on TV. So
yeah, it's a tough spot to be in, and not having close ties to the program, you just don't know. And I'm like you. You can't be critical of a guy that's done what he has done in his career.
Yeah.
Just outside looking in, I almost think it went both ways too. I almost think that match took so much out of Ramos that he couldn't finish it out.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what you would have liked to have seen for the finals. Not to take away from Princeton and what they did, but that was a perfect finals match.
Yeah. I don't think I could justify being critical of Spencer Lee's toughness.
No, not one bit.
I just that's not me. He's proven himself multiple times over, and that's between him and his coaches, and and his teammates. Which it doesn't look like his teammates holding any well towards him either.
No,
so they would be the ones that we could tell.
Yeah.
If they felt like he let him down or whatever, but it didn't appear that way at all. So.
Now moving back into Butler wrestling, Coach Long coming down, taking over the head spot so you can step back, and then you guys' styles meshed well.
Yeah,
you can see a change in the wrestlers a little bit because they're getting more looks at different ways to wrestle.
Yes.
Working with him, how has that changed the way you view Butler wrestling as a style?
Yeah, so he's brought a lot of technique that I just wasn't familiar with, more along the sides of how to scramble and how to do some different takedowns type of things, geared for higher class wrestling, I would say. His son, Kellen, wrestled for Mike Ironman and his youth program for his whole life, and he's got a lot of Mike Ironman influence in that funky style and how to see things, and then just different than what your normal do this and this, and be kind of robotic. He wants you to see things and kind of flow through things, and that's been a positive influence on me, because it's made me grow as a coach and try to see things too. And then when I wrestle, I try to look at different ways and explain it to the boys, like maybe this, if you tried this, and this, you'll end up on top. These are things you can look for. Now, he also coached Long, wrestled for Gary Mayab at Oak Park, and Gary Mayab is a Hall of Fame Missouri coach too. So like, he's had a really good influence on his side of things. We meshed real well. I met him at the state tournament last year after Brendan won the state title, and he was looking to get back to this area. His wife's in-laws, or his wife's parents, live up around Cass Midway area, and then his parents live down by Fort Scott. And I was like, well, I got a perfect opportunity here for you. Like, I'll be your assistant. I've got a promotion out job. It's just taking a lot more time. I can't commit as much time into this, and it just kind of worked out. And he brings his 2 boys, and it's just one of those things that mesh. And I think what really helps it mesh so much is that we don't have a lot of ego. Our main focus is success of the wrestlers. Mm-hmm. And if we see something, either way, especially all the other coaches, let's not forget them. Our whole wrestling room of coaches are A+ guys and A+ coaches. But we all have this drive to make everybody else succeed. All of our wrestlers, we want them to succeed, and we're not going to let our egos get in the way of that. Mm-hmm. So we have the same drive, and we're driving we want to get to that point where we can bring home a plaque from the state tournament and stuff like that. We want to win championships. And so it's just easy mesh, I guess you could say. It just kind of flows natural. So if I have to say something, or if I'm seeing something, and he wants me to take over. There's a lot of times when we coach in a match and I'm yelling. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're a head coach. No, I want you to coach. I want you to coach them up. And you might be seeing something I'm not, and it just works really well. And it just we work together well, and the other coaches work well, and we kind of mix and match with our wrestlers who we have, and from the light weights, middle weights, and then the upper weights, we just kind of everything's just kind of come together. When I first started being the head coach, I wanted good people in the room, that not just successful wrestlers, but successful outside the sport of wrestling and their daily lives, to give the kids somebody to look up to and respect. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes a difference too.
So if somebody doesn't know you,
yeah,
and they show up to a match,
yeah,
they're watching an intense match, close in points, let's say the end of that state finals, when that kid turned Brendan just for a second. Mm-hmm. So they get to see you at your most animated stage, or state.
Yeah.
How are you different from that side as you are from real life?
It's quite a bit different. Wrestling gives me something that no other aspect of my life gives me. And that's not to say to degrade anything in the aspect of my life. And then, like, wrestling just brings something out of me that not a lot of things do, or anything does, actually. I'm invested a lot into it, like my physical, my motions, and then also financial, like, right now I was driving about 45 miles to where I'm living now. It's about 45 miles one way. So, I'm fully, when I commit to something, I dive in, mm-hmm. It's not a tippy toe deal. And there's things that we work on, and, kind of goes back to how hard we coach in the room and what we preach in the room. And if I don't feel like they're getting that way, or something goes wrong with the match, or if I feel like I get motivation, or if I can point something out that they might not be seeing, I'm gonna let them know. and that it's not for show by any means. It just kind of comes out natural, and I just try to let them know. So, and now I hope I don't rub any people wrong by any way, but I'm committed to the kids and their success, and I want to see them perform well. So,
and that's part of coaching.
Yeah,
removing yourself from your ego to help a kid do what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, and I come from the long line or George Bruno grabbed my face mask before, you know, and like I don't do stuff like that or anything like that. But his coaching style, Coach Lyle's coaching style, has had a great influence on me. And then my college wrestling coaches had a great influence on me too. And I've never felt like any of my coaches didn't have my best interests at heart, and I want my wrestlers to feel the same way. So,
yeah. Because nobody sees you off the mat in the room after practice when kids having problems, all the things you do. They just get a glimpse of you mat side.
Yeah.
And that's not real life. That's
I am outside. I'm just going to go to my work side. I work in compliance and regulation and banking regulations. So there's not a lot of excitement in that. There might be some days where might be a little upset with the federal government or something, what's going on with what they're trying to interpret some things. But, I'm pretty docile in the back room reading stuff.
So who would you say is your hero? I know we touched on this the other day when we were talking, but
yeah,
I mean, just let you get it out there.
Yeah, definitely. It'd definitely be my dad. After we talked, I thought more and more on this, and he's always been there for me. Always provided a good example. How to provide for a family, and his commitment and his love for us is unwavering, and just kind of seeing him and more in light as I get older, and the difficulties of being an adult, and makes me appreciate him even more than like when you're a kid on these things. So my dad, love him. He's just always been kind of a rock, and he's always wanted me to do my best and push me to be my best, but it was never about the success I achieved. He just wanted me to exhibit the characteristics that would help be successful. So, yeah.
No, that's a good way to put it all.
Yeah.
And I know, we talked about the other day, but I think as being a dad, getting to hear your son say that's got to be pretty special. So if he watches the podcast, at least he'll get to hear it. Yeah. So, working away from school at the bank, and then being able to come in to wrestling practice, spend your 2 hours with them and leave.
Yeah.
You think that helps?
Yeah. I definitely do. When they see me, and if it's strictly wrestling related, that's not to say just in our little area, I think it's been effective. They don't see me in the school, or they don't hear me nagging or anything at the school or anything like that. And we've developed, so like wrestling's a little bit different sport than any other sport. We spend a lot of time together outside of like when we compete at tournaments, we're there together from 5:30 in the bus rides all the way till probably 5-6 o'clock at night. So we know each other pretty well. But when I show up to practice, we're there to practice. We're not there to talk what happened in school or anything like that. So I think I'm able to, I think I bring a little bit more when I focus into it. Coach Long hasn't usually running really, really good, but if, I don't know, sometimes like before Coach Long, I felt like when I got there, I could really, depending on the day, the boys always call it sweatpants day, so they knew if I had my sweatpants and my sweatshirt on, it was going to be a tough day. It pulled their focus and their intensity, and they knew it was time to go to work. So, but and now they can, like, if they've been asking me at school what kind of practice, no, I don't think it would have helped, because they would try to gear up or just try to pace the practice rather than just me showing up and here we go, this is what we're going to do. So, and I never tell them what we're going to do, because I don't want to pace in it. It's not how we want to go about things. So
that would lead to a good point. I've been fortunate to talk to coaches from all over the country.
Yeah.
I never thought that they would want to be on this podcast, but some of them have. So keeping the room at that max intensity where you're getting 100% out of your kids, or as close as you can get, especially late in the season.
Yeah.
How do you achieve that without just burning them down?
So I actually follow. I can't remember who said this, but like, there's an Olympian talking about thirds. Like 30 of practices are going to be great, 30 of practices are going to be average, and 30 of practices are going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let your bads affect your average and your goods. So not every day you're going to have your best performance. Now you can control your effort and your commitment. And then as coaches, I feel like we gotta read the room, and see like is this a bad average good or day, and we've got to structure our schedule to. I think a large helps with structuring your schedule to where you can kind of pick and choose when you want to ramp it up. Like so, we didn't this year we didn't wrestle again from end of January into districts.
Mm-hmm.
So we felt like we could give the kids off a couple days where we go lighter practice, have fun with it, and then we start our build up, and go tense. So we built up the intensity, and then the week before districts we were going really hard. That Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, backed off Thursday, wrestle Friday. So it's like just kind of understanding how your schedule works, and then some days, like if you perform bad, like at an event, for me personally, I liked having a tense practice that following day. Just let's get the point across, and like these are the things that we did wrong, and this is how we're going to correct them. Especially if I feel like we wrestled lazy, if we weren't looking to score points and seeing opportunities where we can score points, and if we weren't attacking those opportunities. Like, are we comfortable winning 3-1, or when we had a couple opportunities where we could have put the match 7-1 or 9-1 and get that major, so those, just seeing how our performance, I guess,
mm-hmm.
and like what practice require, I think, to correct the things that we needed to correct, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
And so whether it's an effort side of things or a technical side of things, there's some days Coach Long and I effort was great, performance was great. There was just little things, the technical side of things, and that's how we're going to run it. We're going to focus on the technical side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But if we see any issues with our attitudes or efforts and what we're looking to score or not, that might result in us ramping up practice. And because in our eyes, does that mean that their conditioning is not there, or is it is their focus not there? And can we ramp it up and create intense practice where it pulls your focus in? I think,
mm-hmm.
You have a high intensity practice. It requires attention, and it's going to pull your attention to perform.
Mm-hmm.
So now none of this is scientific on my end. It's just kind of how I see it, or how I feel as the practices or how the season goes along.
So I know you come from work, probably want to get home to your family. So I'll kind of wrap up with this. Where do you see your role in the future of Butler wrestling?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now it's kind of year by year, and it's nothing that I have any issue with the Butler School District or Coach Long or anything like that. And I got married last year, and if we have a family, then that's going to kind of pull my attention and my dedication. Now, at this point, I don't think I can draw way back here where it's non-existent. There'll be always some type of, I think, with me, commitment to wrestling in Bates County area. It's just we have a really good thing going in Butler right now. We've got the culture established. We got the technique established. It's just growing as athletes and putting the extra time to be successful. And I think we're going to get there. I love the coaches down there. We're all good friends. And we laugh and joke and have a good time with each other. And if I wasn't enjoying it, I wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I got too many other things to do, and family to be with and friends to hang out with, but just having that drive to be successful on that side of things, and knowing the kids have that same drive. If the kids didn't have that drive, it'd be hard for me to keep showing up because I'm not getting across to them what needs to be done, or they're not taking what I'm telling them, and that's when if I feel like I've lost that, then it's probably time for me to take a step back and let somebody else do it, let someone younger. Maybe it takes somebody new to do it, but it hasn't got to that point, I don't think. And we got a lot of hungry, we had 3 of the qualifiers that we had this year were freshmen, and one's a junior, and they seem hungry as ever. They're already wrestling again, and they're wanting to hit weights and improve a lot. So there's a lot of success still to happen there. So,
well, good deal. I know watching them over at State was really enjoyable. I mean, it's not so often that Adrian people pull for Butler, but I was able to work out a press pass and get Matt's side, and watching them wrestle along with the Adrian kids was just about the highlight of the winter.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I know from the coach's standpoint, like, we really appreciate what you did, and I know the kids really liked the videos that you did and the pictures you took, and then Adrian and Butler, there might be rivalry because they're 10 miles apart, but when it comes to wrestling, we want to compete to win against each other, but we're from Bates County, and then when we want to put ourselves on the map too as a county, and when we get to that state tournament, we want Bates County to be well represented, and it was well represented this year. Jens got hurt, and then William Brown got hurt, but those guys were probably going to medal, and then Michael McCoy did really well. He got 3rd or 4th.
What did he get? I believe he got 4th, and I should know that.
I think he did get
as 4th. Much time as I spend out here with him.
Yeah.
He ran into a couple freight trains.
He did.
And it was really tough.
And he did, and but he's a really good kid, and like a lot of these families that have been around wrestling, they've wrestled since they're little kids, and they've been around the same tournaments, and they know the kids, and we all sit together and we all support each other's success. We want to win if we got to wrestle each other, but we also, and this is kind of why I got into this too, is I want to make this area a hotbed for wrestling. There's a lot of good athletes, and there's a lot of tough-minded kids that are going to do some great things in this world, and I think they have the tools to be successful. It's just getting quality wrestlers here to stay here that we get, and then they produce the young ones, and the young ones come up to high school, and then they produce, and the quality of wrestling around here, and I think it's going to get there if both teams have carried the part. Adrian has done really well. Their coaches in the past, Danny Apgar and Coach Davis, and prior to that, you had Atkinson, and then you had Campbell, and then Lyle. So Adrian's had a really good line of coaches, and that we produced a lot of state qualifiers and medalists. So,
well, yeah, and it was a great time getting to know some of the kids that I would never get to know just being around the tournament. And in saying that, doing a podcast, the biggest part of it is having good guests. So any of your wrestlers at any time that want to come up, talk wrestling, talk about what they're doing, the door's always open, and we'll schedule something with them. So I appreciate you coming in, and continued success.
Yeah. Once again, thank you for having me. And like I said, we really appreciate what you're doing, not just for our kids, this whole county area. I know you put a lot of time in just not these podcasts, but developing the athleticism of kids. And there seem to be a lot of kids out here and they want to commit to get better. And that comes back on you as a person, because most kids don't just like to get better and work hard. And, a lot of people have to force them, but these kids that you seem to have out here, they want to get better by themselves. So, which that's pretty awesome to see. So.
It goes back to what you were saying earlier. It'd be hard to do if you felt like you had to push them to get the work done.
Yeah.
But being around them, they're high-level kids that want success, and it makes it easy.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks again for coming in, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
You too. Thank you.